Hello and welcome to a live Kerfefe break on Deprogrammed with Keri Smith. I am live from Switzerland, and thank you guys for being patient. I see you in the chat, familiar faces. Somebody say something about running late, even in Switzerland. Not even the Swiss clocks could get Keri here on time. Thanks, Jules. Thanks for that. Anyway, welcome. I figured since I'm on this trip, some of you, if you tune in regularly to hang out with us regularly, you know that I'm on the road with my husband who's on a music tour in Europe. And so we had just decided, based on where we're at, my regular times for doing the live show are Mondays and Fridays at 1 o'clock Central. And if we're in a place with good Wi Fi, I'll just continue to do them from the road. So we're in a place with good Wi Fi. We are in Switzerland now. And decided we would just check in now and say hello to folks and see how you're doing and see what's on your mind. There's a lot on my mind this week. If I guess I should say, first of all, if it's your first time here, Deprogrammed is a channel I started a little over a year ago. Actually, I've been podcasting for several years, but used to be on a different channel. Started this channel a little over a year ago, and the purpose is just to try and make better sense of the place we find ourselves in culturally and politically, ideologically, and to help make better sense of my old ideology, social justice, or it's most often today called woke ideology. I was in it for 20 years. Um, I do a series of interviews where I interview people about all different aspects of that belief system to try and help show that it is not liberalism and it is not progressive. It's actually very regressive. And so you can, if you're new here, you can check out the Deprogrammed interviews for that series. Mondays and Fridays, like today, we just do a live chat and hang out and talk about what's in the news and try and have some laughs in an increasingly crazy world. So that's what we're doing here. If you're a regular viewer, of course, you know, if you want to start supporting the show, you can do so at Subscribestar here at YouTube by becoming a member, or at Locals or Patreon. And thank you to everyone who does support. We really appreciate it. Wednesday nights, that's our pop culture show. And we will be having an episode this week at our regular time, 8 o'clock Central on Wednesdays. It's a pre-recorded episode with special guest Comics Division. We're going to be talking about diversity in comics, both pre-woke and post-woke. Like, what did diversity in comic books look like before woke became this culturally dominant sort of religion in pop culture, and what does it look like now? And I'm excited for you guys to see that one. If you're bummed because you missed our British comedy episode with Neil from Blocked Magazine, unfortunately, I don't think we're ever going to be able to get that one up on YouTube again. They took it down because we watched so many funny clips and we had so many copyright strikes. And even though we watched like less than a minute of each of these things, and it's fair use, but we've appealed all of them. We're probably never going to get that video up. So this is a good excuse to finally make your way to Rumble. We do have a Rumble channel, Deprogrammed with Keri Smith at Rumble, and you can watch that one there with Neil James from Blocked Magazine, who came in to talk about British comedy with us. It is a long, fun episode. We went through the whole history of British television comedies, starting with, we started with Benny Hill, and then we worked to the present. So you can see that one there. So I think that's it. I think that's the only announcements I have. Let me just check and see what you guys are talking about. Oh, Anthony. Hello, Anthony's in the chat. I will say Switzerland is really beautiful, what I've seen so far. The bread is great. I'm eating way too much bread and cheese. Chocolates, of course. Somebody suggested the chocolates, so I bought some chocolates. It has been raining here since we got here, which is it's not that bad. I love it. It cooled off because when we were in Munich, Germany, it was so hot. It was unseasonably hot, and we didn't have AC in Munich. And so all of us spoiled Americans were like, we can't take this. Like, we left the heat in Texas came to Germany for the same heat. So this has been nice to have it kind of rainy. My husband and I went for a long walk today, and yeah, I love it here. What have we done? If you ever get the chance to visit, let's see, what have we done that you should do? Okay, so in Munich, since I last did a live show in Munich, Germany, my husband and I went to this palace that's called the Residence Museum, and it is the palace of basically it served as the home for this lineage of monarchs from Bavaria. And the first room you go into, there's like 130 rooms, and everything is very opulent, beautiful, lots of gold, and the ceilings are just gorgeous. There's so much detail. And the first room you walk into is called the Hall of Ancestors. This is at the Residence Museum in Munich. The Hall of Ancestors, and it's this beautiful gilded gold hallway with over 100 paintings on the walls of all of their family tree, of all of the people, the monarchs and their family, and the men and the women. And then they have a huge gold painted family tree on the wall. So they have all the paintings of all these people, and then they have a family tree that they've mapped out. And that was breathtaking. That's just the first room, the Hall of Ancestors. Then it just gets more beautiful from there. I would definitely recommend walking through that museum if you ever get to go to Munich. Um, let's see, what else? We went to the river that everyone goes to that runs through the middle of Munich, and there are surfers there. I think I mentioned this on the last live stream. There are surfers there. It's kind of crazy because in the middle of the city, and they come and they just like, there's a couple of different rapids, and they surf the river. And then people just float down it. And so we went back there, we floated, we did this twice because it was so much fun. And it was so hot, like I said, and the water was really cool. It's mountain, spring water coming down the mountain. And you can get in at the top of the river and just body surf, like float and it just moves you all the way down. And that was a lot of fun. So if you're in Munich, Germany, I would say do that. And yeah, Dion. Hello, Dion. I'm glad you're here because I was hoping you would have some quotes for what I'm about to talk about if you get to stick around. Dion says, in my humble opinion, the saddest part of modern culture is the loss of beauty. Yes. It's really sad to see some of the new architecture going up in some of these places and how just communist it looks, how ugly, boxy, not beautiful at all, and depressing. I think that's part of the intention is if you live in a culture that has come to view humans as cogs in a machine or as um, farm animals, then you don't really think a lot about making sure their surroundings are beautiful, do you? You know, they're just little ants in an anthill. And I hate that kind of architecture. It's absolutely demoralizing. But to get to visit these, like this palace, the Residence Museum and stuff, and see how much attention to detail there is, and how even every little bit of the room, you know, even on the big drapes in each room, they would have like a red room and a green room and a blue room, and the drapes would match, and they would have gold um, brackets that held the curtains back, and just tiny minor details that everything was beautiful. I love that. And I think it makes a difference to your mood as a human. Okay. So I know there's been a lot in the news this week. Last week we talked a little bit about some news in Germany. We talked about the so-called last generation. If you haven't seen that, it's about the climate activists, that the ones who block traffic in Europe and arrogantly call themselves the last generation. You can go and watch that one. There's been a lot in the news since then, and I'm going to get to some of it. Like Trump's mugshot came out, and I think that's interesting. But before I do that, this is more of an evergreen subject, but this really stuck with me, and I thought a lot about this week. Did you guys see this? It made the rounds. This tweet. Here, I'm going to add it to the screen. This was a tweet by Yuval Noah Harari. Now, if I'm mispronouncing his name, let me know in the chat. I'm not familiar with this dude. A lot of you guys might be. He's got 500,000 followers. He is a historian and the best-selling author of Sapiens, Homo Deus, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century, Sapiens, A Graphic History, and Unstoppable Us. And I guess he's promoting right now one of his books, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. And so he tweeted this, and he says, from a biological perspective, nothing is unnatural. Whatever is possible is by definition also natural. A truly unnatural behavior, one that goes against the laws of nature, simply cannot exist. So it would need no prohibition. Hashtag 21 lessons. Buy my book for other great thoughts like this from 21 lessons. Like, no. And this went viral. A lot of people were talking about it, and I understand why, because it's really troublesome, in my opinion. There's a lot wrong with this. So at the offset, first of all, what he's doing here is trying to conflate what is natural, as in naturally occurring, with what is natural, as in normal or acceptable or good. He's trying to conflate the two, and those are not the same thing. I think that's a dishonest thing that he's doing there, because he's saying if something is natural, as in naturally occurring, like rape or murder or any type of aberrant behavior, if it's naturally occurring, if human beings can do it, it should not be prohibited. It should not be prohibited because it's naturally occurring. And that's an obfuscation. That's like trying to say, well, it's naturally occurring, that means it's natural as in normal. No, it doesn't. There are all types of evil behaviors and abnormal behaviors that humans can do. That humans can abuse other people. They can rape other people. They can steal. They can lie. They can cheat. They can murder. There's any number of evil things humans can do, and that these things are naturally occurring, and it does not make them normal or good. And this idea of that he's putting out into the world made me so sick to my stomach, because this is the same defense that pedophiles give for the evil they commit. They say, well, it's look at the language he uses here. They're like, I exist, therefore it's natural. I can't help who I'm attracted to. You know, a murderer could use this excuse. Any person who's committing any evil could use this excuse and say, this is the way I was made. I was made to murder. It's natural, right? And so it just bothered me so much, because I wasn't familiar with this guy, but like I said, a lot of people are. Has 500,000 followers. Supposedly some people view him as some great thinker. And I had a friend who said this guy's demonic, and I absolutely agree with her. This is a person who's pushing evil. The only kind of people, in my experience, usually, I guess there could be an exception to this, but the people I've run across who say that there's no such thing as good and evil are people who are trying to justify evil. Like, that's what he's trying to do here. He's saying we shouldn't prohibit any human behavior. Anything humans can do is quote unquote natural, therefore good, should not be prohibited. That's what he's saying. He's defending evil. He's defending doing evil by pretending that it doesn't exist. And so I said something about this online. Excuse me. And I got some comments from people who are the type who don't believe in good and evil, and these jerk offs who just want to sit in your comments and talk all day. And I don't have a lot of access to Wi-Fi here in Europe, so I'm not online a lot, which is great. But then every once in a while we'll go to a cafe or something where there is Wi-Fi, because we're not paying for a plan here, so we just wait till we get to some place with free Wi-Fi. And then I'll get online and I'll see, and there were like tons of comments from these guys who are just, you know, intellectual masturbators who are in my comments, in my feed, tagging me in, talking about how there's no such thing as good and evil and humans have just made this up so that we feel better and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you know what? I don't feel, I was evaluating how I felt about it. I was like, I don't feel like talking to these people at all, which is rare for me. That's very, my husband can tell you, there's very few people I won't talk to. And even if you, even if we have different philosophies, like even if you're in my old ideology, which I think is thoroughly evil, woke, social justice, it doesn't mean I think you're evil. I just think people get misguided and they get brainwashed and they get misled and they get conned into cults and stuff. And so I'm open to meeting and talking to anyone. And especially if you're a sincere, I'm going to stop sharing this for a second. If you're a sincere social justice person, if you're not in it just to use and abuse others, but if you really believe that it's about ending racism and sexism, which I did for a very long time, a lot of people do. If you're in it with good intent and you're just one of the duped people, I mean, you believe in good and evil. That's why you're in it. You think that it is a movement. You think social justice is about ending racism and sexism. That's how it sells itself. That's how they sell it. So you believe in good and evil. At the very least, we have that in common. I have a friend who's still in woke. And I know she's good-hearted. And she knows I think she's severely misguided, but she also knows I think she's good-hearted. And I know why she's in it. She's in it because she opposes racism. And she thinks it's about ending racism. And funny enough, that's why I'm not in it anymore, because I'm against racism and it's a racist belief system. So she and I have that in common. Does that make sense? But a person like this guy, Yuval, and these people who are in my comments who want to say good and evil doesn't exist, I'm like, you and I have nothing in common. There's no starting ground for us. So for one of the first times in a long time, I realized I don't want to know you at all. Block. And I don't usually block people. It takes a lot for me to block you. But those people who are in there just demonically saying there's no such thing as good or evil and all behavior is equally valid, and humans have just come up with these categories that we've decided what's good and evil, and it's completely subjective and there's no such thing. I'm like, dude, go talk that nonsense elsewhere. You are a deep, dark pit, and I don't want you anywhere near me. Like, you're revolting. You know what it makes me think of? Have you guys seen the movie Event Horizon? This is a movie from the late 90s. It's a sci-fi horror film. So if you don't like horror, you probably haven't seen it. You might have accidentally seen it if you like sci-fi and then saw some really horrific things in it, like I did. I do like horror, though. Okay, this is a movie in the late 90s. Alan Scott says, oh, I love that movie. Okay, Event Horizon. Yeah, a couple people like it. Sir Dildo. Sir Dildo, what a name. Yes, Arnara, the clips of hell in that movie. Yes. Okay. So Event Horizon's from the late 90s. Sam Neill's in it. Yes, Adam. And it's about this it takes place in the future, and this spaceship which is called the Event Horizon, has been missing it's been missing for 7 years, and it suddenly shows back up on the radar, circling outside of Neptune or something. So they send this spacecraft, the Lewis and Clark, out to retrieve it and see if anybody's still alive and what happened to it and how did it go missing for 7 years. And so Sam Neill and Lawrence Fishburne and some others, they're part of the crew. And they go out and find this ship, and everyone on the ship it's obvious a massacre has happened, something horrific. And they finally, at one point, they get this video footage of what happened on the ship. And it had basically gone through some, I don't know, some sci-fi thing, some gravity jump thing, whatever, I don't know. There's some explanation for what happened, but it basically entered this dimension that was hell. And you see this crazy video footage of humans, like all the people who had been on that ship, just fornicating with each other, mutilating each other, eating each other. One guy, the ship's captain, tears his eyes out and holds them up to the it's just disgusting. It's everything you can imagine. It's this is why the idea of like I think Christians maybe look at the idea of, absolute freedom is not freedom, it's slavery to hedonism, to anything that goes. This idea that evil doesn't exist, that's what it makes me think of, is Event Horizon. It makes me think of all the worst things that humans could ever do to one another. That little clip from that movie Event Horizon where it's humans fucking and eating each other covered in blood and their own filth for eternity, that is hell. That is what this guy Yuval wants for the world. That's what I see. I'm sorry. And if you're someone who says good and evil doesn't exist, like all of that stuff in that scene in Event Horizon is not evil. That's not evil. Humans just we just made up the concept of good and evil. Oh yeah, so they're all like covered in blood and eating each other and killing each other and tearing their own eyeballs out. That's cool. It's not evil. We just made evil up. Like what? Who are you? Get the F off my wall. I don't want to know you. How disgusting. Nothing's evil? What's wrong with you? We didn't just make it up, dude. Like, what would be something good to call evil? Maybe molesting little kids. Let's make that up. We know it's not real, but let's make that up. Is that you really don't believe in objective, like some things are morally good and some things are morally wrong? I'm not saying we have to share a belief in God or deity or whatever to be friends, but we have to share a belief in some things are wrong. However you get to that opinion, I'm not trying to say you have to become a Christian like me. I have friends who are atheists who admit obviously good and evil exists in the world. I have friends who are Muslim who know that good and evil exists in the world, who are Hindu that know good and evil exists in the world. It's not a matter of how you get there. To me, we can still be friends, different worldviews and whatever. But if you're over here saying no, good and evil don't even exist, there's nothing that humans can do that's evil. Those are just, subjective categories that humans have created. Like, we have nothing in common. Like, get away from me. Get away from me. Oh, thank you, Achilles Jones. By the way, I saw some of the stuff you've been tweeting lately. I want to talk to you sometime. Yeah, I think you're spot on. Well, thank you. I'm glad someone gets what I'm saying. Yeah, it just made my skin crawl, this tweet. And somebody says, is it worth watching that movie? Well, that movie, like I said, it's got a really horrific scene in it, and it stuck with me all these years later. Once you see that scene, you can't unsee it. It is a depiction of hell. And if you don't want to see that, then don't watch this movie. Because I don't know how many movies I've seen since the late 90s. I couldn't even begin to count them. And most of them I've forgotten, But this movie, that scene, I don't think I'll ever forget it. Thoroughly, it is a great depiction of hell. Thoroughly revolting and disgusting. So, Alan Scott says it's very disturbing. Yes, to say the least. Hey, here, this is great. Let's read this. Nick Ortega. Hello, Nick. He says, I'm an atheist who is very in touch with good and evil. Raping is bad for the rapist and the person being raped, not good for human flourishing. Yes, thank you. Like, I can't believe, Nick, can you believe that we're in the year 2023? We're having to have a conversation about, are some things bad and some things good? Like, I can't believe we're having to have that conversation. That there's someone like this guy, Yuval Noah Harari, who's supposedly a great thinker, who's saying, nothing's bad. Nothing should be prohibited. Moral relativism. That's where we're at. Yeah, normalizing evil, Davina. That's what it does. If to deny that evil exists is to normalize it, is to say Everything's equal, everything's equally good, everything's cool. Not true. Um Oh, okay, Nick. It was tongue in cheek. Got it. Yeah, so that's what's been on my mind a lot because, the other thing that's in the news a lot recently in the past couple years has been something that I think is a great evil. And a lot of us admit, no matter what belief system we're in, or if you're an atheist like Nick, and this is transitioning children, mutilating children, sterilizing kids. This is evil. This is evil. I don't understand how or why a person would even wake up in the morning and try and fight for anything or do anything. Like why would you be, for example, why would you be in pushing against wokeness or pushing against trans and kids if you don't believe in good and evil? Why? You don't think it's wrong. You don't believe there's any such thing as right and wrong. So why? So you're just a grifter. That's what you are. You're using the sincere beliefs of others to sell yourself and to sell books or whatever it is you're selling and to pinch money from people who actually do believe this stuff is wrong. But you yourself don't believe in good and evil or right and wrong. So you're a con artist. That's what you are. I guess that's your reason for getting up in the morning, to con people. Anyway, kind of a tangent, but yeah, this stuff has been in the news more recently, and there were 3 video clips that I saw, and I kind of this stuff is hard to watch, but I think it's good that it's coming out because I don't know about you guys, but I don't think we're that far away from banning this in the US. Maybe I'm a Pollyanna. Have been called a Pollyanna before. But, they've already banned so-called gender affirming care. They've banned the mutilation and sterilization of children who are gender nonconforming, who get called trans kids. They've banned that for minors, for kids, in Finland, Norway, Sweden, the UK. And I don't think we're that far behind. I hope we're not. I know obviously there are states like Texas and Florida that are trying to do it now, but I think people, the more they see of what is happening, and the media is trying to suppress this. They don't want you to see what's happening, but it's getting out there, and the more that people see it, the better, because I think when normal people see this, they can't abide by it. It's all well and good if it's something they just hear about with the Orwellian language, like, oh, gender affirming care for trans kids. Yeah, cool. Of course, I support trans kids. I don't want them to be bullied. I support gender affirming care. The Orwellian words, right? But when you look at what's happening to these kids with their breasts being cut off, with the girls having their skin on their arms peeled off and used to create these fake Franken penises. And then you hear the testimony of some of these young adults who were transitioned, who got gender affirming care when they were children, who are now suing the hospitals, which they should. They should be suing the hospitals and their parents if they want to, for not protecting them from this predatory ideology. When you hear that testimony, I think as a normal person, it has the ability to wake you up. And just having conversations with people I know in real life in the past few weeks, the more that normies see this stuff, the better. Because normies, I don't think, again, maybe I'm Pollyanna, I have faith in them, that if they see this stuff, they can't abide by it. And they're better able to understand what some of us are saying, which is like, hey, once you're 18, once you're an adult, do what you want. But children, we treat children differently for a reason. We protect children in society. We don't allow children to get tattoos. We don't allow children to smoke. We don't allow them to drink alcohol. We don't allow them to have sex with adults. We don't allow them to drive cars or vote or buy a gun. We acknowledge that children are not the same as adults and they need protecting from themselves and from others. And there's no way that a child is capable of deciding, yeah, I'm going to sterilize myself for life. Or, yeah, I want you to cut off my reproductive organs or cut off my breasts for life. There's no way a kid can do that. Just like there's no way a kid can consent, no matter what they say they want, can consent to sex. Children are different than adults. And so we're starting to see a lot more of these kids who are becoming young adults, who are regretting their decision, who are saying outright, I was taken advantage of. I was pushed into this. I was groomed into this. I didn't have a choice. I was manipulated. I was a child. I should have been protected, and I lost my breast because of it. Or I lost my ability to have kids or to nurse a baby if I ever do have a baby. And so they're suing, and they should. It's horrific what's happening to these children. It's evil. I'm going to show you a couple of these clips. And again, I think it's important to watch these. So this is one that the Twitter account End Wokeness shared. If you're not following them, you should be. Hold on, let me just put this on the screen. Oh, hello. I see. Sorry, I wasn't looking at the chat. I'll read let me get this ready and then I'll read this. Thank you so much, Tatsu-sama, for 5. What is that? Is that Czech? What is CHF? Oh, is that Switzerland money? Because it says greetings from Basel, Switzerland. Well, hello. Should I tell you where I'm at? I'm in Lucerne, which is beautiful. I'm not sure how far that is from you, but thank you. Thank you for the welcome. So you guys here in Switzerland are confusing because you speak so many different languages here, and you speak German and then you speak Swiss German, which is different, and it's hard to figure out. But you know what I like about Switzerland so far? This is just a normie American's viewpoint because I know nothing. Just having been here a few days, I kind of realized Switzerland's a little based because you guys don't use the euro. We just came from Germany where everybody's using the euro. You guys have your own money, you have your Swiss francs. You're kind of like Switzerland first. You don't have the migrant problem here that we saw in Germany. You're sort of like, let's take care of Switzerland first. Yes, immigration, but with rules and restrictions, like you're sort of like, we want to make sure we take care of our citizens and put Switzerland first. And it's a little based here. Am I wrong? It's just something we seem to notice. Anyway, thank you. Thank you for the welcome. Andrew Joyner for £5. Thank you, Andrew. Says, I might have mentioned before, but I would recommend Time to Think by Hannah Barnes to anyone interested about the closing of the Tavistock Clinic. Thank you so much for reminding us of that. Yeah, that Tavistock Clinic, it was the gender clinic for kids in the UK, which they've closed. And I have not read that book yet, but I think you have suggested it before. It's called Time to Think by Hannah Barnes. Thank you, Andrew. Okay. Oh, and then Anthony says the trash laws are legit here. Okay. At the end of the episode today, if there's time, we might tell you a funny story about something that happened here in Switzerland. Maybe. It's a little embarrassing. It's actually not embarrassing. It's funny. We'll save it though. I'm going to star that comment from my husband so I remember. But here. Okay. So, like I said, this is a video that was shared by End Wokeness on Twitter. And this is a little boy, biological boy, who, of course, is called a trans child. It's a clip from a documentary. And he actually says by the way, he's been chemically castrated. Um, he says, "Sometimes I think I'm a boy, kinda." He says this to his mom. He is a boy, by the way. He says, "Sometimes I think I'm a boy, kinda. Will you love me if I'm a boy?" How freaking sad is that? He is a boy. Do you understand how psychologically, if you've got a parent who is so bought into you being trans, so bought in, and you've, as a young child, like this little boy, have told her, "Yes, I am a girl," da 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 da, and your mom is so bought in, and you're in documentaries about it, and you're like a famous trans kid now, and your mom has it all over her profile, like some Munchausen syndrome. Trans mom of a trans kid, like that's her whole identity. Do you realize how hard it is for that kid to then say, "Oops, I changed my mind. I'm actually a boy." Duh. By the way, what a failure as a mother. You're a parent, you're an adult, you're the adult in the room. This is a little kid. You're responsible for this kid. One of the things you're responsible for is helping them to interpret reality and understand reality and gravity and biological sex. And you're out here lying to your kid. Do you remember when people used to say, I don't know if it's a good idea for parents to tell their kids that Santa Claus exists? And there was like a whole debate about that because they were like, well, you're kind of lying to your kid. And look at where we're at now. That seems like nothing. That seems so harmless now to tell your kid there's a Santa Claus, but compared to this, where these adults are lying to their children saying, oh, you feel like a girl, you like wearing dresses? You're a girl. You're a girl. I know. Like, what a liar. These kids are going to have so many problems. Here, let's just watch this. This is short.
Estrogen treatment is irreversible and would make Josie sterile. But Josie and her mother never doubted it was the right thing until an unexpected conversation happened one afternoon.
But on the inside, where nobody else can see,
Yeah.
are you a boy or are you a girl?
Maybe I'm a boy inside and a girl outside.
Really?
Yeah, is that true?
Only you know the answer to that. So if you wanted to grow up to be a man,
Yeah.
would you tell me?
Yeah.
Hey, if you wanted to grow up and be a man, you could.
I want to be... Sometimes I think I'm a boy, sort of, but I want to be a girl.
Yeah.
Would you love me if I'm a boy?
Of course. I would love you no matter what. I always have, and I always will.
It was the first time Vanessa ever heard Josie sound uncertain.
Okay. Do you see what's happening there? And the leftists who are pushing this whole trans kid thing, it's like they're in complete denial, not just about biological sex and reality, but they're in complete denial about psychologically what's so obvious, which is that it's easy to guide a child into something. They want to please their parent. And regardless of how they've gotten there, once their parent gives them special attention and their parent makes being the parent of a trans kid such a part of their identity as well and a part of their lives, like a lot of these so-called trans kids, their parents take them to rallies, they speak at the Capitol. I'm thinking of the ones in Texas. You know, they've become little minor celebrities. I was at the house of one. My friend directed a documentary about the most famous trans kid in Texas, and I was at this kid's house hanging out with him, who identifies as a little girl. And, you know, this kid's whole life and the mom's whole life is built around him being trans. Everything's built around that. So how do you psychologically, like, how does a kid come out of that? Or if they, how do they decide that was a mistake? These young adults who are now detransitioning, saying, I made a mistake, like they've done something amazing. They've done something amazing because you've got, it's called the sunken cost theory. You've sunk so many costs into being trans. And some of these detransitioners, I interviewed Helena, who said, she's a biological woman. She transitioned when she was a minor, to be a boy, to live as a boy. And she said, when I started questioning it and I started talking to my therapist about it, and was like, I think I made a mistake. I think I'm actually a girl, which she is biologically, that her therapist was like, oh no, you're having some other kind of mental problem here. Like her therapist was like, no, this is what's crazy, is you saying you're a girl when you're biologically a girl. Like that's what's happened. That's how corrupted the therapists are today. The APA, the American Psychiatry Association, they're fully bought in. They're completely corrupted. And so if everyone in your life, if the sunken cost theory, if you've sunk so many costs and so much, it's cost you so much already to be trans, your mom's bought in as part of her identity, you've spent years, you've cut off relatives who don't use your correct new pronouns, you've informed everyone at school of your new pronouns and all the teachers and principals, and maybe your mom's gone in there and done battles for you, and you've spoken at the Capitol, and you're in documentaries, and you're trans, and that's your whole identity, and that's your family's whole identity. And if you start to question it, even your therapist is like, no, you must be going crazy because you're trans. Like, how hard is it then for these detransitioners to come out and say, I made a mistake? Like those young adults who are doing this, Chloe Cole, Prisha, Helena, they're so brave. Laura Becker is another, so brave to be able to do that. And the whole acceptance and tolerance and trans community, they cut you off when you do that. They defame these it's mostly women. They defame them. They say, oh, they were never trans. They call them hateful names. Like, it's terrible to have to go through that. So this little boy we just watched, like, say a prayer for him, because everything is stacked against him. His mom's bought in. The doctors have bought in. Whoever's doing these documentaries bought in. So, yeah. Here, I'm going to show you another one. This is I think the second one is from the same documentary. Yes. So this little boy is 12. And this is another short, like 1-minute clip, also posted by End Wokeness. And so these kids are getting these puberty blockers now, these hormones put in a chip in their arm. We're using these kids as guinea pigs. This is evil. That's what we started off this whole conversation with. This is evil. You should be able to look at this and clearly define this as evil, in my opinion.
Dr. Olson had a decision.
You are in the perfect place to start on blockers.
And she promises to begin giving her estrogen, female hormones, in 2 years.
Around 13. That's what I think. Yes, you're not going to develop breast buds on the blockers, but you're not going to wait until 16 to start. You know that, okay?
Josie received the blockers as an implant in her arm.
It's okay if you cry.
So with all the bravery she could muster,
you're going to feel a little bit of a...
Josie held on.
You see how, I mean, the people making this documentary are bought in, because they're calling this little boy this little boy who just a few seconds ago in the clip we watched said, I think I'm a boy. Would you still love me if I'm a boy? But they're all bought in. But the documentary person's saying she and her, you know what I mean? The doctors are saying, yeah, this is cool. Let's put this in your arm to stop puberty. And then when you're 13, we'll put you on estrogen. So you start growing breasts. We're going to mutilate you. Because what? Why? Because you're a child who likes to wear dresses? Because you're gender nonconforming? Or what? Or you want to please your butch mom?
On tight. as another chapter opened in this young girl's life.
A lot of times it strikes me that had this happened just 20 years ago,
Thank you.
I wouldn't have been able to give her blockers and she would have had to go through male puberty. That terrifies me.
It's all done.
Do you wanna
Wow.
know? I don't know that she would have survived male puberty.
Yeah, because just 20 years ago, you crazy mom, you crazy abusive mother, you crazy Munchausen mother, 20 years ago, society wasn't as crazy as you, and we clearly would have recognized this as child abuse and mutilation and as something that's morally wrong and evil. But hey, I guess you're lucky that society's reached a point of madness where psychopaths like you, where abusive moms like you are just kind of blend in now. We like hold you up. We're like, oh, look at this munchy mom. I've heard it called, it's a play on Munchausen by proxy, which is where the mom injures their kid so they get the attention when their kid goes to the hospital and they get the attention of having a sick kid. This is an actual thing that happens. There are some mothers who are this kind of disordered who do this. That is the way they abuse their kid. They injure them, they make them sick for attention. This is another kind of Munchausen by proxy, and I've heard it called Transhausen by proxy, which is kind of a funny pun, a darkly funny pun, but they get attention because their kid is trans. You know, this mom is in a documentary. Honestly, like, I mean, you should be in prison. Your kid should be taken from you. Not that I trust the government, but you're not a fit parent if you're not protecting your kid. You're sacrificing them to Moloch. You're putting them up right there on the tray. This is abusive. And I hope, I don't know what you guys in the chat think, but I think we're at the point where society's about ready to say, in agreement, in unison, yes, this is wrong. Yes, this is abusive. You know, it's already happening in the Scandinavian countries. They're already outlawing it. They're already recognizing it as wrong. And I think it's just a matter of time before the US does it. But man, does it suck to be late to this? It is child sacrifice, Dan. Okay, I've got one more I want to show you. This is a different little kid. Also being chemically castrated. Okay, this is an 11-year-old girl. Jebra Falshi, Dr. Jebra shared this one. This is an 11-year-old, and this is footage of them giving her the puberty blocker implant, the chip.
I'm gonna be right here.
And you can squeeze it.
The sixth grader is about to have a tiny medical device implanted in his left arm.
Cut this up.
Okay, again, listen to the newscaster here. The newscaster is bought in, implanted in his arm. This is a little girl, but the newscaster says in his arm. That's part of why these activists, these evil activists, are forcing this idea that, like, oh, to be compassionate, you have to use preferred pronouns. And as I've mentioned before on this channel, I'm in a lot of the parents of trans kid groups, and there's tens of thousands of parents in these groups. And it is like a cult. They will kick you out. If a new parent comes in and doesn't immediately use the cross sex or the chosen pronouns or whatever, they are kicked out of the group. They don't give an inch on this. They say, no matter what your kid says, I've seen examples in the group where they're like, the confused parent comes in, is like, I don't know what to do. My kid, first, my 8-year-old said they were non-binary. When we called they, them, did that for a few months. Then they said they're a boy. Then when we called he, him, did that. Then they said they're a girl again. When it be called she, her, did that. Now they're saying they're non-binary again. And, maybe this is just a fad. And then the other parents in the group are like, it's not a fad. You will validate and do whatever your kid says on this any given day, or you're out of the group. Like, it's a cult. But that's part of the reason I think they're so insistent, and they demand that if you're compassionate, if you want to show the world you're compassionate, you will use these pronouns. And so they've gotten everyone to comply. And again, this makes it harder for the kid to say, hey, guess what? I made a mistake, because even the newscasters bought in. If this kid goes back and watches this program about her transition, even this figure of authority, the doctors who are a figure of authority, her parents who are a figure of authority, her teachers probably, and the newscaster who's a figure of authority, all the adults in the room are saying, yeah, you're a boy, he, him.
Jack's dad and mom are at his side.
Oh, jeez, I'm really terrified.
Jack, it's just in your head.
Hey, Jack,
Relax.
Meredith's gonna put some more numbing to make sure that it's all numb, okay?
The implant stops female puberty and will keep Jack from growing breasts.
There you go.
What would you say to people who think kids are just too young to make this kind of decision?
Sure, I'm a kid, but it doesn't take a genius to realize that I'm not a girl.
An estimated 1.4 million adults in the U.S. identify as trans, 150,000 teens. But figures for younger children are largely unknown. Here in the Bay Area, there are at least 6 clinics for trans kids. UCSF serves about 800 children at its 3 clinics. Stanford sees 300 kids. Kaiser Permanente wouldn't tell us how many patients it sees at its 2 centers. But we do know there are more than 1,000 trans children served at the other 4 clinics. Some kids.
1,000, that's huge. And if you look at the stats, it's increased, what is it, like 400% or something? The number of gender clinics and the number of kids that are now being pushed into this mutilation, this sterilization, surgery, castration, double mastectomy. It's exploded. And no wonder that one hospital didn't want to share the numbers, because I think, like I said, the tide is turning. Tavistock closed in the UK. Finland, Sweden, Norway have now banned it. They know. I think some of them know, and they should, or at least they should know, that this is going to come to an end. And I only hope we have retroactive trials. We probably won't, but I wish we could put some of these doctors on trial. I wish we could send some of these doctors to prison for life. Do you do this to a child? You're supposed to first do no harm. Ugh, I'm going to stop sharing this one now. I did see someone in the chat say, well, I can't find it now, but they said, I'm not religious, but this is evil. Yes, thank you. That was to my point from earlier, that some things are obviously evil. And I don't know, maybe it's easier for people to see things to see evil. In my experience and people I've talked with, who are not necessarily religious or don't necessarily know if they believe in God, or maybe they outright say they don't believe in God, but who have come to recognize good and evil. I've had some people tell me that they were able to see evil first to discern, like, oh, these things are evil. It's not just like these moral relativists want to say, oh, we just create these sort of arbitrary decisions on what's right and wrong. No, it's not arbitrary. Some things are obviously evil, and maybe it's easier to see those things first before you can see things that are obviously good, in relief to that, in stark contrast to that. But mutilating kids in the service of ideology and using empathy and compassion as a mask to do that, that is evil. It's absolutely evil. Using the idea of, supporting trans kids and using that as an excuse to mutilate and sterilize gender non-conforming kids, like kids who are autistic. They prey on the autistic. It's mostly autistic kids. That's evil. A lot of these kids, like that that trans housing by proxy mom said, 20 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to do this to my kid. Yeah, 20 years ago, your kid probably would have just grown up gender non-conforming, maybe would have been gay or lesbian. But now you're doing this like messed up, demented, regressive, barbaric surgery on them. It's almost like a conversion therapy of sorts. Oh, they're not gender conforming. Oh, they're a boy who likes the color pink. Oh, let's cut off the penis. Like, must be a girl. It's so regressive. Anyway, I'm sorry I got on this tangent again. But just thinking about good and evil, it's like that's one of the most obvious evil things that's happening all around us right now. And if you think back to other periods in history, right? What that must have been like to live through a period where there was evil all around you, and it makes you wonder, did people not see it? Like during the Holocaust, for example, when all of this evil started to take place around you, do you think that people were really oblivious to it and they just didn't see it? Or do you think they saw it and they were cowards and they just kept their head down? I think it's more likely that they were cowards and they just kept their head down. I think it's more likely that they saw terrible things happening and they thought, that's not my fight. I'm just going to stay quiet about this. I don't want to say anything controversial. I don't want to be attacked. I think that's probably more likely. And that's what we're seeing now. Because this is all happening all around us. And society's just going about like everything's normal. And there's all these people that we all know in our lives who see this happening and who aren't saying something like we are. Or who are saying the opposite, who are saying, protect trans kids. And by protect trans kids, like any good Orwellian phrase, what they mean is mutilate and sterilize so-called trans kids. Abuse them. That's what they mean. So they're either outright saying that evil shit, or they're doing a different kind of evil, which is the ignoring it. I'm going to keep my head down because I don't want people to call me transphobic. Right? Because I'm a freaking I'm an adult who's a coward, who's going to let what somebody else thinks of me keep me from speaking truth. How pathetic. How pathetic. I'd prefer to be around the ones who want to mutilate and sterilize, and that's why they're in it, than the ones who think it's evil and don't say anything because you're a coward. Because you're an adult who's like, I might be called a bad name. I'm sorry. That's a little ungracious of me. I'm rethinking that as I'm saying that. I do know there are people who are afraid of losing their job or their sense of safety. I understand that. So let me take that back. I'm going to take that back. I'm sorry. Sometimes on the show, you get to see me thinking in real time. And that also means realizing I said something a little too quickly. And so I apologize. If you're one of those people who's not saying what you think about this, I'm sorry. I get it. We're all in a different situation. I happen to be in a situation where I just chose and was able to choose a life, and my new life where I can say whatever I want. I left my old career. I couldn't have said any of this stuff. I would have lost my job. So I just left it. before I could lose it. I just left it. But I didn't have a family and kids to take care of, and I was a single adult, and I didn't have all the responsibilities that some of you have, and so it's a different situation. So anyway, I apologize. Let's see. Squat and Pete carries on fire. What a good name. What a funny. You guys picked the funniest screen names. Vermont Cheddar, Keri, thank you. I needed the stream. Oh, I'm glad. It's good to see you again. By the way, Vermont Cheddar, I've had some delicious cheddars and other kinds of cheeses here in Switzerland. That's mostly what I've been eating, cheese and bread. Michael says, my daughter used to work on cars with me, and I never thought to ask her if she was a boy. Now she does dance. Kids grow in and out of things. Yes, they do. And I hope we've all seen the blogs. I'm so grateful every time somebody shares one of these blogs where they're like, hey, I was a tomboy. Here's some pictures of me in camo with a short boy's haircut, dressing like a boy and doing boys things. And I had all friends who were boys. And I'm so glad I grew up in the 80s instead of now, because I probably would have cut my boobs off. And here I am now. And I've grown into my femininity, or I haven't, and I'm a butch lesbian, but at least I didn't cut my boobs off, like, oh man. Or cut that surgery where they cut the part of the skin on the arm off and then make this fake Franken penis. Oh, again, as an adult, if that's what you want to do, go for it. I think it looks ridiculous. And I heard that there's lots of medical complications. You're going to be a medical patient for life. But if that's what you want to do and you're an adult, I think it's ridiculous and ill-advised, but go for it. That's you. Do you. But for children, no. They can't choose something like that. They're not old enough to be able to choose something like that. They don't even understand what sexuality is. Okay. Should we talk about something else? Should we switch topics? Because I guess I could just touch on this briefly. So I mentioned on my last live stream when we were in Germany, we were outside of we were in this sort of food court area, and these two guys from Germany sat down with us. It was this like sort of all these tables pushed together, and there's a food court, and there's my husband's band had played, and we were getting food, and these two Germans sat down with us, and they just started talking to us about politics. I guess because they were like, oh, Americans, let's see what they, And one of our friends from Munich later apologized. I guess he thought, I didn't pick up on this, but he thought maybe they wanted to see what the dumb Americans thought. I don't care. I'll talk to almost anybody. But they sat down and were trying to ask us about politics, and they were asking about Donald Trump. And this is before the mugshot came out. And they were saying, do you think he stands a chance? And basically, I'm like, I don't trust any of our national elections anymore. And it's not just because of the last one. I definitely don't trust that one. But can I say that on YouTube yet? You couldn't say that for a long time. Your whole channel would get banned if you even said that. You could say you didn't trust the 2016 one. You could say you thought that there was interference there and that Hillary got robbed. You could say that, but you couldn't say it about the 2020 one, or your channel would come down. I think we're far enough along now where I can say that. We'll see what happens. It's a good test. Anyway, I don't trust any national elections, though. And the more I learn about history, I mean, I don't think we can trust any of them since Kennedy, probably. So whether or not he's going to win, do you mean whether or not they're going to allow him to be selected? I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying don't vote. I'm still going to vote on the off chance I'm wrong, on the off chance it matters. Plus, F them, screw them. I don't like the idea of them making us complacent and apathetic where we feel like it doesn't matter if we vote or not. So even if I don't trust the election, I'm still going to vote. But anyway, they're like, do you think Trump has a chance? So all of that aside, me not trusting the election results, I said to them, I do think he stands a chance, especially if they release his mugshots. Like we heard, this is when we had heard that they were going to release it, but before it had come out. And I was like, if they release his mugshot, it's going to make him a cult hero. It's going to be like Robin Hood. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame with, look at all the musicians, the badass mugshot posters and t-shirts that you see with, Johnny Cash's mugshot and David Bowie and Prince's mugshot and Jimi Hendrix's mugshot. You're going to have Trump add him to that nefarious gallery. You know what I mean? And they did it. They released his mugshot. But you know what he did? He released it first. This is amazing. He hasn't been on Twitter since Twitter censored him and banned him. And then he created Truth Social or whatever. And I guess when Elon bought Twitter, he unbanned Trump. And Trump was like, well, I'm not coming back. And so he hasn't tweeted, even though his account has technically been back for a while now. He hasn't tweeted until this week. And he tweets, this is his first tweet in years. And he just tweets his website, donaldjtrump.com. And then he tweets the mugshot where he looks like a badass, like I said, he was going to. And it says mugshot, August 24th, 2023, election interference, never surrendered, donaldjtrump.com. What a boss move. I'm sorry. I don't care if you hate him. You've probably seen the results of this, which is that what I said is happening. It's like a cult hero now. And everybody started taking this mugshot and using it as a template and creating their own funny ones to mock his arrest, because it is ridiculous what they're doing. And I mean, it's a laughing stock. It's a travesty of justice. It's a laughing stock. I feel like others have said, we're in the middle of what amounts to a communist revolution. And all I can do, I'm one of those people who has to laugh at a time like this. So I made some funny mugshots with this. He came up in my esteem. Those of you who watch Deprogrammed, I'm not I'm not a huge Trump fan. I was thoroughly on the left and I was woke when he won in 2016. I was one of those people who sobbed that night. I thought he was all the things the woke think, I thought it was like, oh, this demagogue. And, I didn't know anything about him other than what I was told to think about him at that time. And 4 short years later, I voted for him in 2020 because I thought he was my most liberal option. I certainly wasn't going to vote for Biden. And, I had voted Tulsi Gabbard in the primaries, but she wasn't on the ticket in the general election. So I had a choice between him and Biden. Biden is an authoritarian and a woke, social justice Marxist. I'm not going to vote for that. I've got to vote for the most liberal option. That's Trump. So I voted for him. But I'm not a huge fan of him. I don't think you could ever accurately say, I know people on the left will say this. They say all kinds of things about any of us who aren't woke, right? They always, without knowing anything about me, they'll be like, oh, MAGA, you're MAGA, whatever. I'm like, I don't even know. No, I've never been on that Trump train, whatever that is. I've never been one of those, I've never had a MAGA hat. I've never worn any of the Trump merch. I've never been that person. I have friends who do. No problem with it. It's just that hasn't been where I'm at. And so coming into the upcoming elections, I really like DeSantis. I pretty much decided, unless something changes, I'm probably going to vote for DeSantis in the primaries. And then this happened. And I'll tell you, if you're like those 2 Germans who wanted to get the pulse of an American, here, let me give you the pulse of a common. My husband is going to laugh. He's in the other room. Sometimes I say, look, I'm the voice of the common man whenever I give him music Whenever I give him music criticism or advice, I'm like, hey, I think in that song you should do this. Look, it's just the voice of the common man. He's like, stop it. Anyway, here's the voice of the common man. The fact that they are persecuting him in this way, okay, during an election, that they are so bold as to do this, and the fact that he released his own mugshot like this and just owned them like a boss, I kind of want to vote for him now. Like as a big FU to them, I kind of want to vote for him now. I kind of want to get my first MAGA hat. I kind of want to do all the things now, even though I still prefer, if I had a choice, DeSantis, because they're turning him into a cult hero. I can't help but want to root for the guy. Do you understand what's happening? That's the pulse of America. That's what people are feeling. And my husband told me right before I started, he was like, oh my gosh. He read this headline about, since the mugshot came out. Hold on, let me look this up so I get it right. He has raised so much money. Like, people are excited. Okay. Here it is. Trump campaign reports raising over $7 million after his Georgia booking, after the mugshot came out. 4.18 million in a single day. Do you see what you guys are doing to him? You're turning him into a martyr. So I think he stands a much better chance now than he did before this indictment and before this mugshot came out. I don't get heavily into politics. If you're a regular here, you know that. I'll get called a political show, but I'm not really a political show. I talk mostly about ideology and culture and faith. And when I do talk about politics, it's more, I don't get into the specifics. That's not me. That's not my interest, and that's not my expertise. And there's other people who do that much better, other channels that do that. I just kind of talk about, like, gut feelings. And my gut feeling is, I don't know. I think he stands a better chance now that this happened. So here, let's put this up. Dan says this totally backfired on the communists. Yes, it did. It totally backfired on them. I'm considering voting for him in the primaries now. Night Train says Crowder said it was more than 10 million that he's raised now. Yeah, good for him. Use it. And some of the other people that work for him who are being persecuted, it's disgusting. Like Jenna Ellis, who offered legal advice. She got indicted for offering legal advice. Are you kidding me? She got indicted for doing her job. It doesn't matter if you agree with the legal advice or not. That's her job, is to offer advice. It could be good advice. It could be bad advice. She could be a good lawyer. She could be a bad lawyer. But to try and criminalize someone doing their job, you're going to persecute her. And she gave a big FU to them when she released her mugshot. Oh, have you guys seen the Jenna Ellis one? She's a Christian, and she smiled in hers. Because, and they're pissed, by the way. The leftist, like, blogs, magazines, they're all posting stuff. There's headlines where they're like, these mugshots were supposed to humiliate Trump and humiliate Jenna Ellis and all the other 100 and whatever people. How many people have they indicted? 100 and something's a joke, but it's a lot. And they said this was supposed to humiliate them. And they're not humiliated. Well, yeah. Good for them. Yeah, of course, we know it is supposed to humiliate them. Good for them for not letting it do so. I'm going to see if I can find the Jenna Ellis mugshot. I didn't have this one queued up, but hers came out. I saw hers before Trump's. And she is now fundraising for her own legal defense. Because it's not just Trump. There's all these other people who worked for him, like her, who are having to now raise money to defend themselves because they're being prosecuted for doing their job. Here, I think. Sorry, this is taking a little bit. Jenna Ellis was smiling in hers, and so there were several headlines about hers looking like a glamour shot and how she wasn't taking it seriously. And, the subtext of all of that is, we want you humiliated and crying and looking your worst in your mugshot. How dare you look wonderful and smile? That's the subtext. Here's hers. Okay, sorry, it took me a second. Now, when she shared hers, I don't have the original post here. I couldn't scroll back far enough. But when she shared hers, she also shared a couple of Bible verses about loving your enemies, smiling in the face of persecution. And that's what she's doing here in her mugshot. And I think it looks beautiful. And I think she handled this like a boss. And no wonder they're pissed. They're pissed because they want her miserable. And this was, as they said, this was intended to humiliate. How dare you smile? Good for Jenna. And she's a believer. And she's been tweeting about this and basically saying, God's got me. And he does. He does have her. I fully believe that. So, I don't know. I just thought this was inspiring. Her mugshot in particular. But Trump, according to her, at least the last I saw on her Twitter feed, he had not reached out. It's not like there's some big fund where they're all, where he's helping to defend her and the other people. Like, she's having to raise her own money for her legal defense. So if you want to contribute, go to her, Jenna Ellis Esquire, on Twitter, and she's got a link up there where you can do so. And I think she's selling her own mugshot on hats and stuff, which she should. She should. Ken says, she looks great, man. That's a nice picture. Yeah, she does, right? Jennifer the win. Hey, I don't know how many of you guys are on social media. I know not everyone who watches Deprogrammed is, which is great. I really admire you guys who are not on Facebook and Twitter and all that. So you may not have seen my funny. So as I said, people just kind of turned this into a meme. We're making fun of the communism, and the this whole process that's meant to intimidate and humiliate and just to neutralize the political opponents of this evil empire. I don't know how better to describe it. Anyway, people have been mocking it, as we should. And people have been creating their own mugshots and just kind of posting them and having a laugh. And so if you're not on social media, I'll show you mine. Actually, there's two. Here's one. Let's see. So silly. Can you guys see this? This is my dog Tiger. That's his mugshot. This is when I just got back online because like I said, here in Europe we haven't had Wi-Fi that often, and so I just gotten back online and I was like, oh, I see all the mugshots have been released, and so there's Tiger's. He's up to no good here. He wants to defund animal control. Anyway, I just thought that was kind of silly. And then this one, I'll show you this embarrassing picture. I had some people who were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you shared this embarrassing picture. I've shared this embarrassing picture once before. It was during the beginning of the lockdowns when everybody was sort of locked down at home and everybody was like seemingly on social media and depressed. And so I shared this and was like, hey, if you've got a glamour shot from the 90s, the 80s or 90s, share it for fun, right? Anyway, here it is. This is mine. Look at that hair. My mugshot says indicted on 37 counts of fashion crime. 36 of those counts relate to my hair in this picture. Yeah, this is from I think this was I was probably around 13. So this would have been around like 1991. Yeah. And the glamour shots, if you were from no, this is real, Vermont cheddar. I mean, the mugshot's not real. I put it on the mugshot background so it looks like Trump and Jenna. Like this is what the Fulton County mugshots look like. The gray background with that little seal in the upper left-hand corner. But the picture's real. Yeah, that's really me. People were like, is that really you? Yeah, that's really me. So in the late 80s and early 90s, there were these things called glamour shots. And if you're a young person, you have no idea what these are. And I'll just explain it to you. This was what all the preteen girls wanted, was a glamour shot. We didn't have iPhones. We didn't have apps. We didn't have filters. And, it was, you go to a mall, and first of all, you don't even know what a mall is if you're a young person, but glamour shots would be one of the storefronts. And you would go in and they would have different packages, and your parents could pay to have these professional model-esque photos made of you, your own personal glamour shots. And they would have all these different costumes you could put on. And so this was like one of the packages. I mean, I have more than the leather jacket. It's like the leather jacket one, and then like a feather boa or something. And they put all this makeup on you. I never wore makeup, but they put it on you. So I never looked like this in real life at 13. Are you kidding me? My hair didn't look like that, but they teased my hair out, made it all big and fancy. And then, you would get the photos made, and then they would give you wallet size versions, and then you would put it in your wallet. It's the equivalent of today, all these girls using crazy filters and AI and stuff and they look completely different than real life. That's what this was. Because I didn't look like this, but I could carry this in my wallet and be like, look at when I looked pretty. Right? Right? So this was my glamour shot. And then one of my friends from my hometown, she replied in the comments, she said, OMG, I remember these. And she was like, I have some really embarrassing ones. And she's like, I think my parents took me to like a discount glamour shots photo shoot at the fire station. And sometimes they would have behind you, like, they would drape like feather boas behind you or some kind of glittery fabric to make it look all fancy and classy. And actually what it is in the late 80s and early 90s, it was a bunch of 13-year-old girls going to the mall and getting made up to look like 40-year-old double divorcees, like soap opera stars. And then they would take a picture of you. And yeah, it was a lot of trouble. Kids today, you'll never know all the effort it took to have a photo that didn't actually look like you, because you guys have the apps and the AI. But, we had to do it in analog. We had to do it in real life. So Nick says, now I want a glamour shot, but with overalls, a trucker hat, and a shotgun. Yes. Remember we had to do stuff like that, and you really had to do it. Like you couldn't just use an app. Ken says, my cousin and my aunt has one of these photos. I remember them. They were everywhere. Yeah. It was young. Again, it was like preteen girls making themselves look like 40-year-old divorce ladies. Were you transitioning into a Dynasty actress? Yes, or Designing Women. I could have easily been on Designing Women. So funny. Get them at the mall. Yeah, that's where they did them, at the mall. Is this a joke? Well, it's a real picture, but it is a joke. Okay. Anyway, that's just kind of silly. How long have we been going? I've got a little time left. Should I tell you? Should we answer questions about do you guys just want to hang out now? I kind of ranted a lot about what was on my mind. I could wrap this up, or we could talk about Switzerland. I think there were some questions that went by about Switzerland that I didn't star them, unfortunately, so I don't know where they went. But if you had questions about our trip or whatever, anything you want to talk about, if you want to do a Q&A, give me suggestions. MJ Schultz says, you're distracting me from my very woke sociology homework. Ah, good, because that sounds terrible. Talk about Switzerland. Hey, Davina. Well, my husband had a show 2 nights. He's had 2 shows in Switzerland. He had 4 shows in Munich. He's had 2 in Switzerland. 2 shows got rained out, but the 2 that he did were amazing. And I know I talked about Germany, how there's like a cowboy culture there. They really appreciate Southern and country music and culture. But here in Switzerland, I think it's a little more foreign, and the audiences go crazy for it. Like, and also they sort of treat you like you know how like in the US, if you're from the States, you hear a British accent and you kind of what's the word? It's not like fetishize it, but there's a word for it where you're sort of like, ooh la la, like a British accent kind of thing. It's interesting to you because it's so foreign. I'm blanking on the word. Anyway, they're kind of like that with cowboy culture. So, you know, I've been wearing my cowboy hat a lot, my straw hat, because has been really sunny here until recently, and my boots and stuff. I always wear boots. And I'm at my husband's show, and he does, first of all, they love it. He's doing a lot of his new stuff off his new album, Moonlight. If you want to see the first half of the show, we live streamed it for the first time ever. We tried live streaming on his YouTube channel, which is at Anthony Garcia Music. So you can go see the first half of the show there. And the second half of the show, we live streamed on his Facebook. And there were all these young girls dancing. You can even see them dancing in the video. They got in front of my camera and they were all dancing. And then they saw the camera like, oh, I'm sorry. And is this okay? I was like, sure. It looks all sick. I'm sure the guys are loving it. Anybody watching's loving it. But they were dancing. They loved it. He did a lot of his Latin inspired music, Spanish guitar, some of the instrumentals, and people were going crazy. And then for the encore, he did a cover. He did Working Man Blues by Waylon Jennings. And everyone stood up, and everyone starts dancing. And I was just doing, you know, my kind of like, what do you call it? When I was a kid, my great uncle taught clogging lessons. So we learned how to clog. So I just do this kind of move that's kind of like the clog, kind of like a shag in my boots, whatever. And all these ladies are dancing. And it's this sort of, you know, I think they love it so much because it's not common. This is a lot of buildup to say, when you play a song like that in Texas, the audience likes it, but they don't go crazy because they hear it all the time. They hear country music all the time, and real country. I'm not talking about radio country, like old country. They hear it at a live show anyway. You're used to hearing those songs. Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash, that kind of stuff. But if you play that here, if you play Johnny Cash, like, they go crazy. And they're like, oh, cowboy music, cowboy dancing. And that's kind of cool. That's kind of fun. And we were laughing, my husband and I, because we were saying, like, some of those ladies were trying to mimic what I was doing when I was dancing. And I was like, little do they know, I just made that shit up. They're going to go home and be like, I learned how to dance like a Texas person. No, you learned how to dance like a weirdo. She stood next to me. Anyway. Shag in your boots, Ken says. Oh, well, okay. In the UK, I know shag means sex, but not in South Carolina. Shag is a kind of dance. It's actually the official dance of South Carolina, the shag. And it's a variation on the swing. And it's basically it's 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2. It's you could look it up. There's a movie with Phoebe Cates called The Shag, which takes place in South Carolina. But we learned it in school. One of our classes, we had to learn how to do the shag because it was our state dance. And it's a fun dance. Let's see what else. Let's see if I missed anything. Spike in Madness says, I wish I sounded like the critical drinker. Now that's a great accent. Yeah, right? Especially Americans. We love a Scottish accent or a British accent. Pirate Tomsky, one of the mods here, has a great accent. A couple of episodes ago, the one where my husband came on, you got to hear him try and do Pirate's accent. He entertains me trying to do accents. He's pretty good at them. I'm not. I can't do it. Let's see. Switzerland is gorgeous, says Nick. It is. Have you tried Swiss chocolates? Well, yes, Jamie, finally. We did buy some last night. Exotic. That's the word, Davina. Exotic. They kind of look at cowboys or Texas music or whatever is exotic here. Did you visit any cathedrals? I did in Germany. So in Munich, we went to St. Paul's, and it wasn't as old as some of the ones I went to last year in Germany and France, but I think it was built in like the late 1890s and finished in 1908. And it was almost destroyed during World War II, and they had to rebuild a lot of it. But we went there. We went to Sunday service there. It was beautiful. And we didn't get to go to a cathedral this Sunday or church this Sunday because there was something happening with the band. I forget what. And then, but absolutely, we're going to be traveling around Europe for a few more weeks. We're definitely going to go. Why are you laughing? My husband's here laughing.
It's time for the trash story.
Oh, no. Okay. Here. Hold on. My husband's going to join us. Let me take.
That's okay. Just like that.
Okay. I don't know why I have my headphones in. I'm not listening to anything anymore. You guys, this is my husband, Anthony Garcia. You can find him at Anthony Garcia Music here on YouTube. As I mentioned, he had a live stream 2 nights ago. That was fun. That was a fun show.
It was fun.
What are you coming on to tell them?
I'm coming on to tell them about this really awesome lamp.
Oh, you can't see it with it. It doesn't.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm coming to tell them about the trash laws in Switzerland that Keri's nonconformist nature has gone international. So this morning, so we should start with like our Airbnb last night.
First of all, I need an alcohol-free beer for this.
That means no alcohol.
This is a no alcohol beer. I'm just telling you so you don't get worried about me because you know that we're sober. But on this vacation, I'm kicking back and enjoying an alcohol-free. So, okay.
Sans alcohol.
Sans alcohol.
So it says on there, sans alcohol. So last night we had to stay at Airbnb. It was kind of a just an in between. One night in between hotels and then where we're staying now for the next couple of days. And it was the cheapest thing I could find in the area. And so where do we begin? I thought we were going to have our own place. And then I thought after messaging with the owner that there might be she might be there. Well, it turns out it was an entire family and they were they're really just odd, strange people. And it was kind of uncomfortable. Keri could hear them while I was in the shower. She could hear them, having their dysfunctional family arguments and just all these things were happening. It was just a really uncomfortable time. And we were just going to go to sleep and just get out of there in the morning. The funny thing was the source of a lot of frustration was that there were very detailed notes about how to empty the trash can and put a new trash bag in the trash can before you leave, and to take any extra trash with you and then walk down to the general trash and throw it away because it's very expensive for the owner to do it herself. And it's a very long walk and it's a very it's very difficult for her to do it, even though she's charging a $50 cleaning fee.
Look,
on
so
Airbnb.
she had really detailed instructions written out and taped everywhere about the trash. And I had already seen this, and we hadn't talked about it, but I had put all of our trash, our bathroom trash and our kitchen trash, in one trash bag, and I was prepared to take it with us and throw it away publicly in a public trash. But he was like, he saw her letters. I think it was like, screw this, and he started putting the trash in different trash bags. And then I was like, no, I don't mind taking it. Let's put it all back in the one bag. So we went through with this. We'd already he had dispersed the garbage. We put it back in the trash bag. So then we get all of our luggage and we're leaving.
As we're walking down the street to meet the rest of the band. We're gonna have a coffee at the train station before we all go our separate ways. So as we're walking towards the train station, Keri has this bag of trash with her.
Little bag.
It's a bag of trash with her that she's, carrying to find a public trash can, and we're both venting our frustration about the trash system. And she just is like, "Oh, there's a Subway sandwiches right over there."
There was a public trash can outside of like a shopping mall area that we were passing.
Yeah, it was a public trash can. It just happened to be outside of Subway sandwiches. It was not a big deal. So she said, "Hold on a second." She walked over to the Subway sandwiches public trash can.
Put the trash in.
Put the trash.
And I started to turn around. It was just a little bag it was like one of those plastic grocery bag size bags. It wasn't even full. I put it in, and these ladies are yelling, but I didn't realize they were talking to me because they were speaking German. And
they were sitting outside eating or something.
They were sitting right outside, right next to the trash can. And they were like, as I turned around after I'd already deposited the trash, I realized they were talking to me. I didn't know they were talking to me because it just sounds like gibberish if you don't know the language. But they're like, "Ow, ow, ow," like they were yelling. And so I was like, "Oh, are you talking to me?" And they're like, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I don't know what you're saying. And then they said, "This trash did it in the trash." And I was like, "Oh, is this not a trash can?" And then
yeah, they were not happy.
They were not happy. I was like, "Is this not a trash can?" Obviously it was a trash can. I was like, "Is this not a trash can?" And then she's like, "This is Subway trash. This is a Subway restaurant's trash can." And I realized then what they were trying to say. They were mad and yelling at me because they were saying, "You put your trash in a public trash can that is not marked. It doesn't say you can't put your trash here just for Subway people. It doesn't say that." And they're yelling at me, "It's a Subway trash can. Get your trash back." And I was like, "Oh, go fuck yourself."
I was gonna leave that part out, but I was gonna leave that part out, but yeah, and I was like, it's time to get out of here.
I was like, "Oh, okay, go F yourself." And I started walking away, and I rejoined Anthony, and we start walking away into the crosswalk, and she starts yelling. And
she went to the trash can and grabbed the trash out of the trash can and started following Keri with it.
She grabbed the trash. She went climbing because I realized in that moment what she wanted wanted some American to grovel and to be like, oh, I'm sorry. Let me dig into the trash can and pull the garbage out. Like she wanted to have that moment of control over me. Yeah, like a Karen. That's
by the way, someone's saying in chat, it sounds like Germans. No, this was today in Switzerland. This was this morning in Switzerland.
This was in Switzerland, but it does sound like a German, right?
Mm.
And so I was like, once I realized what was happening, I was like, oh no, go fuck yourself. And then so one of them turned into. What'd you say? She turned ghetto real fast. She's
like, "Fuck you, bitch."
That's me. She was like, "Fuck you, bitch."
It was a whole altercation. It was a whole thing.
And I was like, "Oh, I understood that. Thank you." And I kept walking, and the other lady's following us with the trash that she dug out of the trash can. And I was like, "What are you gonna do with that? I mean, we're leaving. Call the cops, I guess."
Yeah.
And it was just like weird. The whole thing was weird. Dark Water says, "What language were they speaking at first?" It was German.
It was
right?
German, yeah.
But it happened so fast. He wasn't translating for, and it was raining, so I had moved. He was under an awning, and I had moved away. I had moved towards the shopping center so I could put this in the public trash can. Anyway, we were just laughing because
I wasn't laughing at first. I was like, "Let's get out of here." Totally embarrassed. Let's leave. Keri is just like,
well, the thing is, I don't hold on to the anger. Like, I was really just like, actually, I did evaluate afterwards. Like, something like that happens. I'm like, did I overreact? And I was like, no, I didn't actually. That was the appropriate response for what they were saying. And I wasn't like screaming livid or anything. I just said, oh, go fuck yourself. Like, that was the appropriate response to what they wanted me to do, which is to dig back in the trash can. Okay, so we were talking about it later, and we were like, maybe there's some rule, which we think there probably is. There's some rule where they probably have to pay. The businesses probably have to pay to have their trash taken away. So, I mean,
per pound. I think they have to pay per kilo or whatever, kilogram.
Right. So, but if we don't know that, we're clearly tourists. When they started talking to me and I was like, oh, are you talking to me? I don't know what you're saying. Clearly we're tourists. At that point, they could have chosen to show kindness or grace and been like, oh, we'll give you this one, or whatever. Like, it's okay. But they didn't. They were screaming and angry and weird. And I could tell, and they wanted me to go into let me just dive in that trash can like they did.
She was literally talking trash, someone said.
Literally talking trash. They wanted me to do that. And I was like, oh no. And there's something about, I'm older now. I'm in my 40s. Like, I was a pleaser when I was younger and I was woke. I probably would have been that American who's ashamed to be American or whatever, who would have been like, oh, excuse me, let me dig back in the trash. Like, no, screw yourself. No, that's the appropriate response. And then we walked away and he was like, because I don't hold on to the anger. So we get to the train station and I'm my normal self. I start talking to
my normal self.
My normal self.
So, she changed from the Hulk back into Keri.
Well, there's some old guy who sits with us, Ivan. We start having a bubbly conversation. Anthony was annoyed that guy, but it was like, yeah, because you don't have to hold on to it. Like, if it had been I don't know. I wasn't mad. I wasn't that mad. I was just like, this is crazy.
It was just funny. The reason this is just so funny is because I've been giving her crap about it all day long. We've just been riffing on like, Keri was like, she should have just yelled back, this is not how it is in Joe Biden's America.
Okay, so we've been laughing about it. Yeah, because I wasn't wearing this hat. I was wearing my cowboy hat. But if I had been wearing this America hat, we were like, I should have been like, what? Go back at... Do you see this hat? This hat says I can put my trash wherever I want. That's how we do it in Joe Biden's America. Anthony was like, and then I should have just started public urinating.
just peeing on front of the subway.
This is how we do it in Joe Biden's America, especially in the cities.
Anyways, that was funny. Meanwhile, as we're sitting at coffee, our violinist had stayed in this friend's sister's like luxury apartment, and she had all these international musicians staying, and they all cooked dinner together. She had a piano in the room that she slept in, overlooking the Alps. And she got driven to the train station in an Audi this morning, and we were just like, "Well, we get to stay with like dysfunctional family."
Yeah, we were
and digging the trash, fight with two Swiss ladies. We're working in Subway for minimum 20 francs an hour.
We were riffing before she left, yeah, because Anthony was like, oh, she's driving the train station in her being driven in her Audi. Like,
as I stepped out of my Audi with replacing my lipstick and putting on my satin gloves, out of the corner of my eye, I saw two figures being chased with a trash bag by two Subway employees. Really
in the rain.
Yeah, in the rain, soaking wet. Anyways, okay.
It's so stupid. It's so stupid. Yeah, Davina says play up the ugly American stereotypes. Yeah, that's what I kind of was like wanting to lean into. In retrospect, as we were joking, we were like, if I had been wearing this hat, I could have been like, anyway.
Yeah.
In Joe Biden's America.
Joe Biden's America. You just should wear a Biden shirt and just be the ugliest American you possibly can.
Yeah. In Joe Biden's America, you're lucky if people put it in the trash can. People poop on the streets in San Francisco. That's what it's like in Joe Biden's America.
Anyways, that was fun.
Sorry. Okay. That's it. Thanks.
That was the highlight. That was the highlight of our weekend.
That was our funny story. We had other funny stories. That was probably the funniest, the weirdest. Anyway.
Yeah.
You guys, Thanks for humoring us. LA2 says John. Yeah, that's what it's like in Joe Biden's Los Angeles. Nobody even uses a public trash can. Hillbilly Carrie is funny. That's the only accent I can do because it's my childhood. What else? Oh, somebody had a question for you earlier. Let me see. Texas Sheepley, international musician creates international incident. We were actually waiting when we were at the train station for a second. Anthony said, this is Switzerland. What if they do send the cops? Like, what if we're sitting here in the cops?
Well, what was that story that our bass player was telling us today? That somebody had told him it was like,
oh, the cops. Oh, she had the cops knocked on her door.
Okay, so there's a couple that we met at my show.
This is a secondhand story.
Yeah.
But the story is that the cops showed up at this woman's house and said, hey, we got a report that you dinged this other woman's car door at the supermarket earlier today. We want to go take a look at your car. And so I just thought you could never get people to do that in the US. Somebody dented my whole truck. Like, the cops aren't going to do anything.
Not in Joe Biden's America.
Not in Joe Biden's America.
And so then what happened? The lady said, I didn't do it. She said, I didn't do that. I mean, this is kind of ridiculous. And the cops were like, well, would you mind writing her a letter and just apologizing? Did you hear that part of the story?
Oh, yeah. The cops told her, they said, well, it doesn't look like there's any evidence on your car, but could you call her and apologize?
It's so funny. The level of sin in this country is like, how dare you throw your trash away in the wrong public trash can?
You put it in the public trash can for Subway customers.
Do you realize you're making 4 times American minimum wage, and there are no homeless people defecating in front of your business? And if there were, the police would come right away and remove them, which they wouldn't do in Joe Biden's America.
In Joe Biden's America, actually, seriously, in Austin, when they had passed, the leftists had passed this referendum that said the homeless people could encamp wherever they wanted. That's when I was working for my friend's cowboy boot shop right on Congress. It was a beautiful location until those years. And there was one time I had to call the cop because there was a homeless guy. He had pooped right in front of our door and he was still sleeping there next to it. And the cops came and they're like, sorry, there's nothing we can do. I mean, that's Joe Biden's America. Do you know what I mean? Like Switzerland's like, you put your trash in the wrong public trash can. We're going to humiliate you and chase you down the street. And we're like, homeless people can poop right in front of your storefront in Joe Biden's America.
Got it so good over here. They got it so good. All they had to do was yell at a little girl in a cowboy hat today about throwing a little piece of trash in their trash can.
Okay, somebody did have a question for you before we go. Let's see. Jamie says,
have you ever played a Nirvana song? What?
Have you ever played a Nirvana song?
Never. Actually, it's funny. Of course I have. What? That's funny. That's kind of a funny question, but I love Nirvana. I mean, I love them. Like they were like, I was there when they came out and they were just, but when I was in South Korea, when I was living in South Korea, I was part of a Nirvana cover band. And so we did I tell you that?
No.
Yeah. So we did several shows, but we did, I mean, they only had 3 albums or 4 albums, 3 that I know of, like Bleach, Nevermind, and In Utero. So we did all the songs off of those 3 albums. And it was awesome. I loved it. I covered as soon as Nevermind came out in high school. When I was in high school, my band that I was playing in, we just covered the whole album. It was awesome. Yeah, I love Nirvana. It's a shame what's happened to Dave Grohl lately, though. Oh God, I don't want to start. I got to put the hate back in the bottle. The trash story brought the hatred out.
Oh no.
Okay.
Remember when we first started dating and I told you my favorite Pearl Jam song was
when we first met, Keri asks me, she says, one of my favorite songs is that song by Pearl Jam called Imitators. I was like, wow, I've never I've never heard that song. I mean, I know Pearl Jam pretty well. I've never heard Imitators. I was like, how's that song go? She says, here we are now, imitators.
Them potatoes.
It's like, that's not Pearl Jam.
It's Nirvana, and if anybody else has made that mistake, it's this name of that song is Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Yeah.
I don't think I said it was my favorite song. I think I was telling you a story about that song.
I remember. It was just funny.
That's why I don't.
Because you totally got everything wrong about it.
Yeah. But you said you thought, wow, this girl's cool. She knows some Pearl Jam song I've never even heard of.
Wow, that's an obscure. She has some obscure song I've never heard of.
Yeah, because it wasn't their song. Okay. This is such a special treat to have Anthony here. He usually won't come on the camera beside me. You've done interviews with me twice now, but he was like, I don't want to come in and ruin your podcast like Yoko Ono.
I'm sitting here like Yoko Ono.
Which is not what it's like at all. So anyway, it's a special treat. So if you have any other question for him before we wrap this up, put it in the chat now or forever hold your peace. Because we're going to go probably make some dinner. We're in this cool chalet that friends of Anthony's have graciously allowed us to stay in. And it's rainy and cold. So we're going to make food. And Pirate Tomsky, Mr. Pirate Tomsky, one of our mods, has been hounding us to watch Deadwood. And we've started watching it. Now we're addicted. So we're going to go watch some Deadwood probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or not.
AH says, it's a shame we've gotten to know that Oliver Anthony's not too keen on non-leftists. Oh, I've missed that. If that's the case, I don't know what has been said. I don't know where that's coming from.
Someone says you have a drummer.
Do you have a drummer? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, our drummers. The drummer that we brought on this that I've been playing with the past years, like, I mean, he's fantastic. I mean, he takes over the show sometimes. He's incredible. He's an English guy his name's Graham O'Shea. Actually, he has his own YouTube and TikTok, and he does all these kinds of videos. He's very popular. His name's Graham O'Shea, and he does. We should probably find his link and put it in the chat because he does these great videos where he'll take a famous drummer. Let's say, for example, Ringo Starr. I believe that was the first drummer that he did, and he will take a Beatles. He'll take a song, and it's like a minute long because it's TikTok. And the first part will be like, this is how a normal drummer would play this song. Like, let's say it was Ticket to Ride or something like that. And he'll start out playing just a regular beat, and he'll say, and now this is what Ringo did. And he'll show how he'll just show and illustrate the uniqueness of the drummer. And with Ringo Starr, that's very easy to do because his parts were just so unorthodox and so unique. So Graham got a lot of popularity doing that with like several drummers, like Jimmy Chamberlain from the Smashing Pumpkins, Meg White from the White Stripes.
He actually, like, Ringo Starr saw.
Yeah, and Ringo Starr saw his. Yeah.
And here's his TikTok. It's Graham the drummer, and he has like 126,000 followers or something.
Yeah.
He's an amazing drummer. I will say this. He does his own, like, whenever he does a drum solo in one of Anthony's songs, the whole audience goes quiet and is like, what? And you start to hear people whistling and screaming. And then when he wraps it up, sometimes people stand up, like he gets his own applause break. It's incredible.
He hasn't done John Bonham Spike in Madness. He hasn't done, I don't know if he's done John Bonham. I haven't seen his channel in some time, but he's always getting requests to do different drummers. And I mean, obviously he can't get all of them, but his style is definitely not similar to John Bonham. I'm sure he could imitate it. But he's, John Bonham was, I mean, that guy was a force of nature, and I don't know if anybody can really play like him, but John Bonham if you don't know who he is, he's the drummer for Led Zeppelin. But Graham's style is, he's very, very technically proficient. He's a jazz drummer. He's also plays a lot of funk and a lot of that kind of style. Latin. Of course, I've gotten him into Latin music because we're doing a lot of that, and he knows all those styles. He played on cruise ships for like 10 years or something. So in those situations, you have to really adapt to a bunch of different styles. And so he's great. He's a fantastic drummer. Yes, we have a drummer. he's his own thing, you know, and I'm just very grateful that he's even playing with us. We had a great time here. They left today, so he had to go back home. But
I've got another comment for you. Where did it go? Oh, wait a minute. Thank you for the super chat. I'm so sorry, Ian. I just saw it. Ian so forth for 15 lira. 15 pounds. He says she actually dug through a bin of half-bitten sub sandwiches to chase you with a bag of trash. That's unique. Yes. Thank you. It was so weird. Everything about it was weird. It was just one of those things you just have to chalk up to somebody is so controlling.
But you know, it's like I was saying before, she's probably taking orders from the owner, who they probably get charged per pound a month for the amount of trash they take out. And then the trash laws are so complicated here. Even where we're staying, where we're staying is in the apartment of a man who is the father of my friend's wife.
We don't have to give too much info.
It's anyways. Sorry, we don't have to give a lot of info. But what I'm saying is, we're staying with a friend, and they've just told us that, you know, sometimes they were notified when out of the country that they recycled wrong. And it's just, you know, there's just these stories of complicated trash issues, and it's just funny, you know. I don't know.
Yeah, they just take trash and recycling very seriously here, I guess. But but still, all that being said, that woman, Ian, yes, that's correct, is very weird. That's not normal. I don't think the normal Swiss person would do that. I think that woman had a problem and was like some type of controlling Karen is what they're called now. But actually in Germany, remember last year, your friend, I was explaining to her she said, what's a Karen? Because I had used it in a phrase. And I tried to, I was like, oh, you know, someone who's very controlling and wants to tell everybody what to do, like wear your mask or put your dog on a leash, or, you know, stack your shoes up neatly, or in the hallway. In Germany, somebody restacked our shoes like that kind of a controlling person. That's who this was. This was a Karen. But last year when I was trying to define that for Anthony's German friend, she said, oh, you mean an Erica.
That's right. I forgot about that.
She said, oh, an Erica. That's what we call them. I was like, what? Did you know that? Are there any Germans in the chat? Is Real Raven here? Did you know that in Germany you guys call them Ericas? Is that a thing? That's what
I forgot about that. Totally forgot about that.
She was like, oh, that's not a Karen. That's an Erica. Wow. Thank you for the super chat. Melissa Dale Neal for $10. Thank you. Are you a photographer? Because that looks like a picture of you with a fancy camera. Thank you very much. This was the comment I was going to read to you, babe. Michael says, you guys got my wife and me hooked on Winning Time. We got up at 5:30 this morning to watch last night's episode. Is there a new episode?
There's a new season?
Is there a new season?
Maybe
so. Well, if there's a new season, Michael, then you are ahead of us.
Forget Deadwood.
Wow. You really like that show.
Yeah, I did.
Why do you like it?
It's just the casting, the music, the production, the cinematic choices. I mean, mainly the production choices. It just looks like it was shot. It looks like it was. It's original footage of the lives, and the casting is incredible. When I first saw the trailer, I thought it was a documentary. It was so well filmed, and I'm sure the videographers used like vintage real film. I'm sure it's not digital. Maybe it is, but it looks authentic. I just love the way it looks. It's really nice.
It's great. Even if you're not, like, Anthony knows a lot about the history of the Lakers and stuff.
Not really. I used to really follow them when I was a kid, though. Yeah.
And so, but even if you don't, like, I didn't know very much going into it. It's great. The writing is great. The casting, like you said, the music, stylistically, they did just a lot of great choices. And I like the character arc for several of them. And yeah. Oh, Shags is here. Hey, Shagsworth. If you guys haven't seen it, I put out an interview with Shags a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, maybe. Go check it out. It's the second to last interview in the interview section. He's amazing. He's got a great channel. And we have some similar, like some overlap. He's someone who found himself politically homeless and isn't really a part of the left or the right anymore. I say any more about the left, but yeah, go check it out. It's good to see you, Shags. He says LMA. Oh, Erica. Yeah. James says, I call them Rebecca's. James, you just have to be different. There was something else. Oh, Dan. Dan says, I'm watching your drummer's channel. He is imitating many drummers and styles. He's very impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, he's great.
AH. Keri, have you ever seen Jojo Rabbit movie? No. Why does that sound familiar?
Don't know.
I don't. That sounds familiar for some reason, but I don't know why. No, I haven't seen that. And Melissa, yes, she says, I am a photographer and video editor. Oh, wow, cool. I don't know where you're based, but if you happen to be in Texas, hit me up, Melissa, because we are looking to work with some videographers. So I guess you don't have to be here. I don't know. If you're interested in whatever craziness we're going to be getting up to, send me a message. And for anyone else who's in the Texas area, if you are a videographer or an editor, hit me up. We are looking to work with some people on a couple of ideas, and you can reach me at deprogrammedpod@gmail.com. Okay, I think
you should tell, as a closing story, you should tell about the cats, the Swiss cats on.
You're pulling out all the funny highlights now.
Because I thought that you were going to go into earlier, and then we'll be done.
And then we're done. You guys want to hear one more funny story? Okay.
They said yes.
They said yes. Shaq says he loves your music.
Thanks, man.
This is a funny story. Well, okay, so one of Anthony's friends, he lives half time in Zug, Switzerland, and where we just were, and where Anthony was playing a festival, and he also lives half the time in Texas, in Fredericksburg. And Anthony met him because he has a music venue there, and he books Anthony for shows. He's a big fan of yours, and he's a great guy. He's made a lot of introductions for you here in Switzerland, and
he's
Swiss, and his wife is Texan, and they own this really fabulous place that you can stay in Fredericksburg with Swiss chalets that they've rebuilt. I mean, they put a lot of love and attention. Talk about a beautiful place, right? And so every once in a while he'll put us up there if Anthony's doing a show, and he put us up there during the last big freeze, and everything was frozen. This is before we had insulated our attic, and at our home, which we're renovating, it was so cold that Tiger, our dog's ice bowl, had frozen solid. Like, even though the heater was running, it wasn't working because all the heat was escaping through the attic and the floor of this old house. And so we were very grateful he put us up that night, so we didn't have to stay in our freezing cold house. And so we're at the cabin, and there's these cats who live on the property, and these two cats are in. I don't know if you looked through the guest books, but they're in all the photo books. Like, they've lived there for years, and guests take pictures with them and stuff. And that night, the orange cat came to our cabin and was meowing because it was freezing. It was like below zero outside. It was freezing. It was freezing. And so I was like, can I let the cat in? Because we had a fire. It was so romantic. It was beautiful. Can I let the cat in just for a little bit? I know Tiger and our dog freaked out, but he was so sweet. He was like, your dog, our dog. Look at what he does.
Anyways.
Look at his face. Anyways.
Continue.
This is how he plays with Tiger. Okay. He and Tiger have a fake antagonistic relationship.
He antagonizes me.
I'm going to show him this video. Anyway, I said, can we bring the cat in the cabin? Because it's freezing. And the cat looked so cold. And he said, okay. So we brought the cat in. And the cat spent the night with us in the cabin. And, Tiger got used to it. At first, he was very unhappy. And the cat, we gave him some food. He enjoyed the fireplace, whatever. And then I said to Anthony, I was like, do you think they just let the cat stay out all the time in the freezing cold? Like, your friend doesn't like bring the cats. I know they're outside cats, but he doesn't bring them in. And Anthony was like, Oh, well, if I asked him, he's from Switzerland, he would probably say, this isn't, I can't do the accent. He'd be like, this cat is from Switzerland.
This is a summertime for the Swiss 3D cats. They are from Switzerland.
This is no ordinary Texas cat.
Just this tonight, the cat asked me for his bikini because he wants to sunbathe. He wants to sunbathe in the moonlight.
This is nothing for this cat.
Yesterday, he asked me for a cup of ice cubes before he sunbathes.
This cat was born on an iceberg.
This is summertime for these cats.
This cat, what did you say? This cat sleeps in freezers.
He said it is too hot last night. He asked me to put him in the freezer. And he was fine. He was sweating this morning when I let him out.
This is no Texas cat. This is summertime for Swiss cat. Anyway, I'm sorry. I don't know if you guys find that as funny as I did, but look, it's been over 6 months. It's been 8 months now since you made me laugh with that. And anytime, just randomly, he can be like, "This is a cat from Switzerland," and I'll die. I'll die laughing. This is no Texas cat. Okay.
That's it.
AH says, "Are we sure sans alcohol in Switzerland means without?" We're just high on life, AH. Actually, this is a good example for any young people, for any people who are considering quitting drinking and they're like, I used to think, oh, it's going to be so boring. How can you have fun being sober, right? Because I was an alcoholic. You can have lots of laughs without alcohol, man. Life's pretty fun, wouldn't you say? Anthony's sober too.
Look up. You can get chased by women with trash bags too, kids.
You could be one of the cool sober kids. Okay. Okay, we're done. That's our last funny story for the night. Okay. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. This has been, we had some serious stuff up front at a couple of rants, and thanks for sticking around for the silly, frivolous stuff at the end, if you did. And yeah, John, he says fun is achievable without impairment. It is. Anyway, thank you guys so much for hanging out. I guess that's it. And like I said, this Wednesday, we're going to have at our regular time, 8:00 Central, we'll have a pop culture that we pre-recorded, myself and Mystery Chris, with Comics Division. And that's about diversity in comic books. And then I think on Friday, I'm going to try to do another live. I'll let you know what's happening. Michael says, more co-streams with stories. Great change of pace. Look at Anthony's glazed over eye. He doesn't want to hear that. Aw, thank you very much, Michael. Okay. Thank you guys. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care. Now I have to find the video. Okay. Bye for real.